Hey everyone, my name is Tim Stoddard, and in this week's video, I am going to give you a behind the scenes breakdown of my latest newsletter biz. I'm going to show you the newsletter itself. I'm going to explain to you the industry, and most importantly, I'm going to break down the 5 potential ways I'm going to try to monetize this newsletter and turn it into a real cash generating machine. So let's get started. Hey, first and foremost, let's take a look at the newsletter. The newsletter is called The Census. You can check it out on thecensus.io. I've mentioned it a couple times in my videos and in my weekly blog posts, but I've never done a real breakdown on it and explained to you what the purpose of it is. So the entire reason why I created The Census is a little bit of a backstory here. When I first started Sober Nation, I had the idea to also create a media company for the other side of behavioral health, not necessarily the people that needed the help, but the professionals that work in the field. And for really like 8 years, I talked myself out of it because I didn't personally believe that there would be a demand for this kind of content. This isn't the same inspirational kind of content that I write on Sober Nation. This is like dry. This is business oriented. This is talking about insurance and like treatment modalities. And so I didn't think there would be a market for it. And last year, I discovered this company right here, bhbusiness.com. And this company just completely rocked my world. They reminded me a lesson that I already knew, which is if you make good shit, there's going to be people that appreciate it and want to follow along. And so I'll be referencing this website a few times, bhbusiness.com. This is really the inspiration, and I'm stealing a lot of their model. I'm not going to go quite into the depths that they go to with their particular business model, but you'll see there's definitely a lot of places where I'm outright stealing it. Okay, so then how exactly am I going to monetize this business? Well, I'm going to do so in 5 different stages. The first stage is what I do with every newsletter that I start. I sponsor my own newsletter. This is really something that I talk about a lot, especially over at Copyblogger Academy, where I have a newsletter and I'm building an audience. So instead of trying to sell sponsorships, why don't I just use the attention to generate clients for my own business? And that's what I'm doing. In the newsletter itself, you'll see brought to you by Stodzy Internet Marketing. I put the logo of my company in the very front, and then I give a little bit of an introduction. And then once again, I put in a sponsored link. And after that, I go with the newsletter. So it's subtle. The newsletter itself isn't completely riddled with ads. I'm not necessarily out here generating clicks and trying to sell click-through rates to sponsors. I'm just making the best newsletter that I possibly can. And in the process, I am generating attention and awareness to my own services. So we've been at this for like 3 months so far. I haven't closed any deals from it yet, but I've generated 4 really solid leads. Because, as you click over, it brings you to my website. And so I get leads through the chat widget. I get leads through this Hire Us button. As people, browse around and maybe check out some of the blog posts. Every one of these blog posts has CTAs in the top and in the sidebar and CTAs within the text where a pop-up form and a lead form comes through. So I've generated some really good leads. I haven't closed any yet, but it's going to be worth it. Like even if I close 2 deals a year from this, the amount of money that I pay in order to generate the leads is still pretty minimal in compared to the amount of money that I make from the actual clients. And not to mention, let's say worst case scenario, I break even on it. Well, cool. Now I've broken even on the costs of generating another asset, which has like a significant email subscriber base and all of these email subscribers, it's got a high open rate as well. So the worst case scenario is I basically get this online asset for free. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to close deals. It's happening. This is just something that I've done a bunch of times. And actually, I have another example of it. So here's another example. This email was sent out 4 years ago. This was in the beginning stages of when I bought Copyblogger. And I didn't have any sponsors for the newsletter. And so I did the same exact thing. Every time I would send a newsletter, I would pitch my own services. So in the case of Copyblogger, we would pitch our SEO agency that's aligned with Copyblogger, which is Digital Commerce Partners. And so every time I start a newsletter, I always start with this particular strategy. I don't want to waste time trying to get sponsors. I don't want to waste time like trying to sell products or anything like that. I can generate revenue the fastest by using my newsletter, by sponsoring my own newsletter and promoting my own services on my newsletter. The second stage is going to be events. I want to use this newsletter to create events and sell events. And I'll give you some examples of what I'm looking at. So I already mentioned bhbusiness.com. Well, this entire media company is really an events company. They do six, seven, they do a lot of events every year. I'm not exactly sure how many. So the next event that they have is in Chicago. It's the Autism and Addiction Treatment Forum event. They sell out these events every single time. It's a really important industry that they work in, and there's a lot of like excitement around the new treatment modalities that are happening in this particular modality. And yeah, they do events around autism. They do events around addiction treatment. They do events around like the different funding mechanisms that are happening. Like there's a lot of private equity coming in. And so these events are crucial. But not only do they make a ton of money by selling tickets to the events, they make a ton of money by selling sponsorships in the events themselves. And this was really the thing that blew my mind when I learned about it. I just recently sponsored an event. I bought the lowest tier sponsorship. It was $5,000. That was the lowest tier sponsorship, and there's like 500 or 600 attendees to this event. My guess is they probably do like $400,000 to $500,000 in revenue every single time they have an event, and they only have, well, not only it's a lot, but they have about 500 attendees per every event. In addition, I want to do online events. So this is another company that's kind of come up, stateofaddictiontreatment.com, and these guys are doing online events. Um, I think this is really reasonable and great, and there's no reason why I can't do this same thing. These events are run by a company called Dreamscape. Dreamscape's a great company. However, I know that my ability to create media and to build an email list is like significantly beyond what Dreamscape can do. And so I'm excited about this. I'm going to wait. It's going to take me some time to get there, but there's no doubt. I'm going to take the same exact model that BH Business is using and the same exact model that Dreamscape is using with State of Addiction Treatment. And I'm going to start hosting online events. And then hopefully, maybe one day, I'll be able to do in person events. And so that's something I'm really excited about as well. Okay, the third way I plan on monetizing this newsletter is, of course, through sponsorships. So I don't have an outbound sales team for sponsorships as of right now. I'm just collecting leads through this one link on the actual website. I've sold one sponsorship so far. In order to make this really worth it, I have to have a lot of subscribers. So it's not until I get to 15,000, 20,000 subscribers that I'm going to start taking these sponsorships seriously. But the reason why I like it is because the average CPM in this industry is so much higher than typical. So for a copy blogger, in this email list, I have, well, I pruned it a lot, but I have about 130,000 subscribers, and I can make like 10 to 12 grand a month from that. Well, I can make probably 20 grand a month once I build this email list to like 20,000 subscribers, just because the industry itself has a lot more like high dollar, high value attention attached to it. So I'm not there yet, and this is definitely in the future. But I do plan on creating an outbound sales team, or probably working with the ConvertKit sponsorship network as well, and giving them a list of leads so they can pitch, and I can build sponsorships through the newsletter as well. Fourth way I plan on monetizing this newsletter is through a course. So, believe it or not, I've created an entire online course on digital marketing for the addiction treatment and the behavioral healthcare industry. I've never promoted this course. I've hardly even told people about it. As of right now, I actually give the course away for free as part of like an email bait in Stodzy. So if you go to the actual Stodzy website and you click on the sidebar, right? So if you were to sign up for this email list, you get redirected to this course. So right now I just have it as some email bait. And then when people get here, I have the CTA for them to learn more, and I collect leads with it. I have closed a deal through this. So there are times when I think maybe the best thing to do is to leave this for free. However, with the rate at which the census is growing, if I have 50 to 60 people signing up a day and I create a really good autoresponder to sell this course, which I know this course will sell. I mean, this is really, really valuable information. This is 10 years of my life that I put together in this course. It's no joke. This thing is really serious. If I sell this thing for 500 bucks a pop, I plan on selling it for like 1,000 bucks a pop. If I sell one of these a day, well, that's great. That's a ton of revenue for not a lot of work. I fully intend on turning this course into a product. Again, I'm just not there yet. My biggest priority as of right now is just to continue building the list and continue promoting my own services, sponsoring my own newsletter, as I like to call it. However, there's no doubt that this course is going to be a potential revenue stream for the newsletter. And the fifth and most important way I'm going to monetize this newsletter is by leveraging the attention to build relationships. Now, this is so freaking important, and so many people don't appreciate how valuable this is. But this is what I just told you is actually the entire business model behind my timstodds.com website. So every single Tuesday, I write an article and I publish the article on my newsletter. And I do sell sponsorships sometimes, but really I don't. What I do is I give sponsorships away for free. So this is the article in the actual email that I send out is where you see the sponsorships. But I've given away a ton of sponsorships for free, and in exchange, I either like trade the sponsorships for equity in business, or I use it as a way to, I mean, I don't want to say do favors because it's not like there's ever like a quid pro quo or however you say that attached to it. But but yeah, I mean, I help people out. I use it as a way to help other people promote their products, promote their ideas, promote their services. And by being the first one to do favors and the first one to help people out, it's generated so much value in my life. I've got equity in companies. I'm not going to really go through it because I don't think that would be fair, but there's a lot of the companies in my portfolio that you're looking at now that I was able to gain equity in or just completely absorb by giving away promotions and giving away attention in my newsletter. And so with the census, what we're going to do is we use this to build business to business relationships. So in the addiction treatment industry, right? Like I am in the lead generation side. I do digital marketing, but there's a whole ecosystem around here. There's SaaS companies in the addiction treatment industry. There's billing companies. There's real estate people. There's private equity firms. There's medical equipment firms. And these relationships are really, really valuable because if you can build B2B relationships, those you can create a network of other businesses that are adjacent to you that refer you business. And a lot of the way been able to generate so many clients for Stodzy is by building great relationships with other adjacent businesses who refer clients to me. But when you have a newsletter, when you have like an olive branch to extend to these other businesses, wow, it is a real game changer. And so this is a philosophy that has probably generated the most revenue in all of my companies in my whole life. It's also not something that is easily quantifiable. I can't necessarily say I've generated this much, like I don't have a Stripe account that can tell me exactly how many sales I've made by doing right by people and by doing favors for people and just using the industry, the awareness that I've created. But even if you don't make a dime from your newsletter, which by the way, I don't, right? Like I do sell some sponsorships here and there on my newsletter, but for the most part, this is all completely free. I do all of this work on timstodds.com. I don't get paid anything for it. It's all just a way for me to make relationships. Even if I don't make a dime with the newsletter, this newsletter itself is still going to be the most valuable asset that the company has. I highly recommend you look at newsletters with a broader scope than just how can I sell sponsorships. Once you have the email list, you have infinite ways, well, maybe not infinite, but you have like a multitude of ways that you can generate revenue. And most of the time it's indirect revenue, but there's no question once you have it, you have all of the power. You have all of the resources at your disposal and you can do anything you want with it. Thank you so much for watching this week's video. I hope that my behind the scenes insights on growing the census has given you some inspiration for your own newsletter. I hope that you take this information and that you apply it. I've never started a newsletter and instantly generated revenue from it. It's always been something that I've worked on for months and years until eventually it turned into something that just had so much power and so much influence that I could leverage it to create opportunities for myself in many different ways. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. Smash that subscribe button. I appreciate everybody. And thank you so much. I will talk to you next week. Peace out.